King Sayumba also knew that the assassin brought before him would rather die than confess anything that will implicate the one that truly sent them. The king's reservation notwithstanding, the elders were adamant that Lalia must be punished. They pleaded with the king to set her as an example, even if it was not for the death of the princess but for breaking the sacred rule of keeping the customary curfew for the night of the ritual dance. It was an abominable act punishable by death, and for that reason Lalia must pay with her life. The king tried to reason with them that she must have a good reason for going out at that time of the night and on such a day. They reminded him that he had always been a fair and just king who always honored the god's command, but because of his empathy towards the girl, he was too willing to compromise his image. They went on further to lament that if Lalia was spared, it would set an undesirable precedent that will cause people to lose respect for the sacred curfews. People will then do whatever they please, and this might result in total lawlessness in the land. As for their attacker who had admitted to killing Halima, his fate was sealed. He was condemned to be burned at the market square in the presence of everyone. However, for Lalia, a request was made to have her swear before the oracle of the land that she had no hand in the death of the princess. It was only after she had sworn that a decision can be taken on whether or not she is to live or die. She must also explain why she was out that night when everyone was forbidden to. Princess Halima's remains were then taken to be prepared for burial. People had just begun to disperse when there came screams from the queen's quarters. One of the slaves walking by had just seen her crawl out of her hut with blood all over her and on the ground. She screamed out of shock, calling everyone's attention to the scene. Soyinka had to immediately leave Lalia to attend to the queen. Even though the palace had just plunged into total chaos over what had happened to the queen, the elders did not hesitate to drag Lalia to the shrine to swear. When they got to the shrine, they did not find the priestess. This puzzled them, but they concluded that since she must be in the mourning over the demise of her only child, Princess Halima, perhaps she had left to be alone for a while. Nonetheless, this did not do much to allay the unsettling feeling they all had over her absence from the shrine, or especially without informing anyone from the kingdom prior to her departure. Meanwhile, the mob of people that were following the elders and jeering at Lalia were getting more ruthless, demanding for her immediate death. They were all calling for her to be burnt alongside the assassin. They insisted that even if she was not guilty of killing the princess, she was guilty of breaking the curfew on that fateful night, and to them that alone was enough reason to have her executed. All the council elders except the royal physician Soyinka agreed to this punishment, and there was little the king could do to save her from the angry natives, because they were right to want to have her death as per the law. However, he managed to calm them with a promise to carry out the execution the next day, buying himself more time to save Lalia. That night, the king was awoken from the strangest dream. After his dream, he woke up determined to get the truth out of the assassin, even if it meant torturing him to death. He brutally tortured the assassin himself that late night, and when he finally got his answer, it became clear to him why the queen was mortally wounded and the priestess gone. After revealing the truth, the assassin begged the king to take his life. To him, this was much better than what he had waiting for him when the queen and his people found out that he had given up her name as the one who had plotted and ordered for Princess Halima's death. But the king spared his life, mostly because he needed to make him confess in the presence of everyone so his council wouldn't think he was trying to save Lalia. The assassin was so scared of the repercussions of breaking the oath that he had taken to never divulge anything about the plot to assassinate the princess that he took his life by the next morning. Or so the king thought. This truth devastated the king. It finally dawned on him that the queen was not what she claimed to be all these years. He had come to realize what kind of woman the queen really was. He was extremely ashamed that he had been married to such an evil woman and did not even have an inkling of her true nature. If she can so easily hire assassins to kill their only son's betrothed, that must mean that killing comes easy for her, and she must have done it many times before. The worst part of all of it was that he could not reveal the truth about who really killed Princess Halima. He could not implicate his wife, the Queen of Tongu, who was after all responsible for everything. Even though he knew the truth, he thought it fair to wait until he heard her side of the story, but unfortunately, she was still unconscious from her wounds. This worried him greatly as he had only a few hours before Lalia was due to be executed, and he could not think of anything to do to stop it from happening. He was in distress the whole night, restless over all he knows about what had transpired in his kingdom the day before. The guilt he felt over his inability to save his ward from her looming fate was gnawing at him. He also now knew why Lalia was out of her hut the night of the dance. He was told by her friends that early morning that she had offered to follow the princess during her dance to keep her company, as well as to protect her, as the princess had feared dancing alone throughout the night. The king could not help but admire her bravery in all of this. Her refusal to say why she was out that night made him admire her even more. Lalia's refusal to reveal why she truly went out during the curfew that night was to maintain her dear friend's legacy of being the strongest and bravest princess the kingdom of Tongunte had ever seen. The princess's willingness to go through with the dance and face the goddess Helima was one of the reasons why natives loved and admired her so much. She was the bravest princess they all believed her to be. Therefore, Lalia refused to say why she was out on the curfew night, even after being told by the king's man that it could save her life. That day, the king retired to his quarters earlier than usual. This, however, roused no worry from his council. They all attributed it to his wife's current condition. They all believed that the queen being unconscious was the reason for his melancholy. Early the next morning, Soyinka was the first to awaken the king to inform him that his wife had only few moments to live, unless they could get their hands on some Ajulu herb. When the king ordered for him to find it at once, making the physician explain that he had already tried the ones from his own stock, but his herbs didn't seem to have any effect on her. The king was not fazed by the news Soyinka had given him. Instead, he just asked about Lalia and the preparations for her impending execution. Soyinka relayed to him that the people had already fetched all the wood needed to start the fire. After giving this update to the king, Soyinka tried to shift the conversation back onto the condition of the queen. Worried about her well-being, she had little time and her life was barely hanging on thread. He was desperate to remind the king of this fact. Okay, what can we do to save the queen then? Is it the same Ajulu herb Lalia grows? King Sayumba had asked hopefully, and he had seen how his question made Soyinka stop in his worry. This lifted his spirits. Hopefully, Lalia would not have to die after all. The medicine man had really grown fond of Lalia and was sad that she was going to die if nothing was done to help her. At this moment, this was the only way they could think of to save her. Soyinka did not care if he lost the confidence of the people as their healer and herbalist. Yes, it is the same Ajulu herb that she grows and brews, but unfortunately for us, she's about to be burnt alive. Soyinka responded smiling, glad that the king was thinking along the same lines as him. We cannot let that happen now, can we? The king answered, a smile slowly forming on his lips, and both grinned to each other. They headed out together, with Soyinka rushing to go stop the execution.